But it's not just for that. It's literally to build your AI's need to understand. And this is where a lot of people will understand actual AI is because the reason AI has existed for so long is because of this thing called weights and bias, or in another word, dials and knobs. You take this dial, you tone it down, you take this dial and bring it up a little bit more, all of a sudden the output starts making all sorts of different responses. You take this dial and you put this knobs, all of a sudden output just says, all right, I get it. You want me to do it again? All right, dials and knobs, do it again. And then system comes back with right answer. So this human in the loop is not just about, somebody to keep in check on it, but it's just that important. So I will use another example of Tesla. Like that has nothing to do with large language model, but when the car is driving, and my favorite picture that I always use is Tesla was driving behind a bunch of red lights and green lights and yellow lights, the traffic lights, right? The reason it was driving behind it is because the truck in front of it had a bunch of these traffic lights on the back of the truck. So the Tesla car is looking at it like, what am I supposed to do now?
Right. Exactly.
There's no lights in it, but I can see it, but I don't understand what that is. Well,
Yeah.
Tesla actually has a human feedback that goes into system says, hey, there's a truck in front of me with a bunch of red lights and green lights and yellow lights. What am I supposed to do? Somebody has to say, like Bobby, don't worry about it. It's a truck that's moving in front of you, right? The system has to learn all these different things because, like, say for example, bike on the side of the highway is a bike on the side of the highway. Bike on a wreck driving 80 miles an hour is not a bike that's driving 80 miles an hour. It's a bike on a wreck on the back of a car, right? Systems had to understand that. So remember the space and time concept, it visualizes, it sees things, which is computer vision. And the reason I bring that up is because these computer vision using large language model are far more sophisticated than they were before.
Mhm.
And this is something very important for any business owner to understand that, they say, I'm not going to use large language model. You're not going to use large language model until the day you realize all the other AIs that you're using are pretty much useless without large language model.
Right.
So say, for example, what Lucky just mentioned earlier and Bobby just mentioned earlier, that these systems are looking at patterns, but they couldn't describe the patterns. What's the problem here? They don't have a large language model to describe why they picked that pattern. The Tesla cars are really good at objectifying, looking at objects, the 3D object, and saying that object is this. Is this as in I make a decision, but I don't tell you what it is. I don't have a large language model to tell you what that decision is. So a business person who's looking at large language model from ChatGPT perspective now has a broader view of what it is that large language model do to all the other AIs that's been here already, and the AIs that are coming into the future, like humanoid robots, factory robots, digital twins, so many other things. Large language model exponentially grows the capabilities for all these things that previously, like Bobby said, if you press W over and over, that slows down the process, right? USPS has been looking at the postcards or the envelopes and reading addresses, handwriting since 1990. Well, that's great, but there's no large language model to actually read out what's been said. It's just looking at alphabet and alphabet and alphabet and saying that's what the alphabet says. But it doesn't have a large language model to understand it from a business perspective, right?
Mhm.
So today, USPS using large language model is a lot more better than back in 1990s when it was using AI called OCRs, right? Or somewhat of AI component called OCRs. So these pattern recognition capabilities and large language model built in is deadly combination because what it's doing is that now it's able to describe things, right? So if you ever come to a lengthier discussions about AI, one of the things that you will hear me say over and over is the fact that it's identifying, labeling, and making decisions. If you can identify, you probably can make labeling. And if you label, you make decisions. If you don't label, you just identified and you stopped. There's no going into decisions anymore, right? So a system, no matter how old it is, it always has done just this. And it will do it for as long as the system exists. It will always have this human thing called what we do: identify, label, and make decisions,
Mhm.
right? So if you're a business owner and you're thinking like, wait a second, we're just talking about large language model and KM, and this guy's talking about pattern recognition. Well, it's important because you already have lots of pattern recognitions around you. It becomes part of your strategy to look at those pattern recognitions and say, what part of this pattern recognition can I put a large language model into and actually, like Bobby said, make some money off of it, right? It's worth to add to my revenue. If you can identify it and if you can label it, you can make a decision on it. Human